on this computer. Okay, we are officially recording and ready to go. This is the Health Equity Coalition onboarding. Thank you all for being here live. We also wanted to capture this to share for any future incoming members. I want to start out this onboarding with an Angela Davis quote. And she says, "You have to act as if it were possible to radically transform the world, and you have to do it all the time." So I want to share the mission, vision, and definition of the Health Equity Coalition. So the mission, the CPHA Health Equity Coalition will advance health equity and justice in Colorado through education, community engagement, advocacy, coordinated efforts, leadership development, and innovative cross-sector solutions. Our vision is that all Coloradans will have the opportunities essential to attaining their highest level of health. And we define health equity as the active assurance that everyone is afforded the opportunities essential to attaining their highest levels of health. So here is an image of some of our values. Please just take a look at this. We really wanted to visualize, what is the values, which is really the heart of the coalition. So just take a second to read through some of these. You'll see that some are bigger or smaller, and that's based on just how many people, spoke up for that. So action is a huge one, inclusion, adaptability, innovation, collective impact, integrity, courage, collaboration, and so much more, power sharing. So go ahead and read through some of those. And before we really dive into the Health Equity Coalition, it is important to recognize the Colorado Public Health Association as a whole and their anti-racist journey. So as Angela Davis says, in a racist society, it is not enough to be non-racist. We must be anti-racist. And there is so much importance of an anti-racist approach in public health. As a major cause of health inequity, racism violates a core mission of public health professionals, which is creating conditions that give all people the opportunity to achieve their best health. In 2020, APHA announced racism as a public health crisis. We must be intentional about changing our own policies and practices and the ways in which, as organizations, are complicit in this. And that is why CPHA decided to start their journey as an anti-racist organization. So, some of the importance of this, just recognizing our mission is to work with the community to improve health, recognizing that public health aspires to address the systems of health inequities and the systems which perpetuate them, and believing that all people should have the opportunity to make choices and have the chances to allow them to live a long, healthy life, regardless of their income, education, race, gender, or ethnic identity. We see continual trends in data that show strong inequities in health outcomes. And lastly, we are really striving to change the narrative and empower people. So when we think about how the coalition connects to CPHA's anti-racist path, we can really hold them accountable, and we can authentically engage the community and model equity in action and really show what that looks like. So this next slide is just an opportunity for the current Health Equity Coalition directors to introduce themselves. So I'll start out and then I can pass it off to my colleague. But first, my name is Sedona Allen Moreno Castellan, and I am a mother, first of all. My daughter Yareti, she is 14 months old, and I'm so grateful for her. She really inspires me to make an impact for future generations. I am currently a health program specialist at the Public Health Institute at Denver Health, where I facilitate I for Prevention, which is a group of paid young people who have lived experience in substance misuse and mental health struggles. We come together to create healing spaces for young people to identify issues and solutions in the community that are holistic, trauma-informed, and youth-led. I'm an earth guardian and water protector passionate about environmental justice. I have my bachelor's degree in environmental science with minors in peace studies and yoga from Naropa University. And I am a certified yoga instructor and also certified in permaculture design, which is really Indigenous agriculture renamed. I'm one of the OGs of the Health Equity Coalition. I joined back in 2017 when it was first forming. And I'm just very passionate about doing this work. I've been doing youth and community engagement and public health work for over 7 years now. And I'm a part of many different groups and community initiatives, including Future Ancestors, helping to heal 7 generations back and 7 generations forward. And now I will pass it to my wonderful colleagues. Stephanie, if you want to go next, and then we can pass the mic to Corey.
Thank you, Sedona. My name is Stephanie Salazar Rodriguez. I am the owner and lead trainer of Blazing Cloud Consulting. It is a small woman minority-owned business, and I do primarily training and technical assistance in public health. I also do some leadership coaching, and I'm doing some overdose prevention and education through Narcan distribution and through fentanyl testing strips, primarily in the Latino and Native American Indigenous community in Denver. I now have a grant application in to continue that work in Boulder County. The goal is to really save lives. I have a master's in public health and a master's in nonprofit management. I've been working in public health and human services for close to 40 years. So I am the OG of the OGs. And I have also been part of the Health Equity Coalition almost from the inception as well. And just this last fall, I guess, is when there was the election, and Corey, who's going to talk next, had the foresight to really think about a co-leadership model as we're moving forward. And we really intentionally looked at multi-generations, with me being an elder and Sedona being a younger person, but still doing some amazing work. And I've actually known Sedona since she was 16 years old. So I have seen her make some amazing, amazing strides in the work that she has done. And I am so honored and blessed to be amongst these 2 amazing trailblazing women. So with that, I will send it over to our senior director, Corey Thomas.
Hi, everybody. Oh, it's so good to be in this space with you all. I was a little late today, but I've seen all the incredible books that came out of Sedona's amazing prompt. I'm Corey Thomas, the Senior Health Equity Coalition Director, and I just feel so honored to be doing this work with everybody in this space right now. I really appreciate seeing you all, some familiar faces, some new faces, and it feels like a tremendous honor to be a part of this leadership team with Stephanie and Sedona. When I was asked to run a few years ago by Ashley Wheeler-Bell, now Gallegos, it was really intimidating for me, to be completely honest. As a cis, white, straight woman, I have a lot of privilege. And one of my first questions with Ashley was, you know that I have all of these identities of privilege, and I'm being asked to run for leading this coalition. And being a volunteer for 2 years prior to that meant a lot to Ashley. And being in the midst of COVID, and at the core of who I am is someone who deeply, deeply believes in relationships. I believe in possibility, especially in the context of community and relationship. And this coalition has been very much a family for me. I know for many of you, and coming in and out in different ways. You all are doing meaningful work if you're in this space and committed to coming together. Coalition is about collective action, and with CPHA really focused on building a movement. And there's a lot of work that Sedona is going to be sharing in a short moment around the healing work that this field requires. And so in my life, I'm a coach, I'm a consultant. That's a lot of what I do. The compensated work that I get since I was at the University of Colorado before consulting, that's where a lot of my Colorado statewide work was a part of with ECHO Colorado. I deeply care about my home state where I was born and raised. Although I work nationally, this coalition has been a really, really deep part of my work in Colorado, my commitment to Colorado and community in that space. So I just feel honored to be here, and I'm going to pass it back to Sedona to keep bringing us into the full awareness of the history of the Health Equity Coalition, what we've been up to, and what we want to invite others into, especially those who are new to joining this meeting.
Before she does that, I want to talk a little bit about that photo. We decided we were going to have our first planning meeting at some place that brought us joy, and we were able to break bread. So this is our Noa restaurant on 7th and Santa Fe. And as you can see, the baby joined us to show that she already is out there working to be a leader in community. And so we decided to take this picture before we left our first collective meeting as leaders in this group.
Yes, thank you so much, Stephanie and Corey, for those beautiful introductions and for everything that you added to this space and to the context really of why we're doing this. And Stephanie, I love your description of this photo. It definitely brings me joy to be in spaces where people are passionate about this shared goal. So very grateful to be working with you both and to be connecting with so many incredible Health Equity Coalition members. Like, this is a family. Like, I love how you said that, Corey, and I love how we can come together to create change and to do the healing work that is required. So to get kind of into the nitty gritty and to build, here we go. Okay, so we did want to, hold on, let me make sure this is the right slide. It looks like I'm missing a slide. So sorry about that, y'all. Because before this is actually the organizational structure. So I don't know why it's not showing up here. Let me see if I can just pull it up real quick. On the slides if I stop sharing. Okay, hold on. I can't minimize. Okay, well, I will share that out with you. I don't know why it's not coming up as a visual, but what this diagram looks like is it has the American Public Health Association at the top, which is kind of who is, the main group, which then comes the Colorado Public Health Association, which is a part of APHA. And then within the Colorado Public Health Association, hold on, let me see. It's much easier to describe with the diagram up, so I'm doing my best, y'all. But there is all of these different committees within CPHA, including conferences such as Culture of Data and Public Health in the Rockies. There is also the Policy Committee, who does have a policy lobbyist. There's, of course, the Health Equity Coalition, which we will go more in depth with. There is also, hold on, I'm doing this all from memory, so I apologize because I did have a whole slide and it's definitely.
I think Kat can share the slide if we can get Kat access to that. You're doing amazing, Sedona.
You're doing great. You're doing great.
Thank you so much. I was like,
helpful.
okay, this is the test right now as a CPHA board member, but I was like, okay, we're getting through it. Hopefully we are able to share that slide. And if not, I'll get us, popped back in and still flowing. Here comes Kat to the rescue. Thank you so much, Kat. So this is what I was telling you all with the diagram. So we got APHA at the top, then we have the Colorado Public Health Association, and then we have the executive board, which includes the president, president-elect, past president, finance, and health equity officer, which is a super important position as well. And huge shout out to Waveen, who we have on the call, and Jillian, who are both part of the executive board. And then part of the whole CPHA board is all of those committees that I started to explain, which includes the different conferences, the policy and frontline lobbyists, communications committee, and membership committee. And within the Health Equity Coalition, we have our different professional development work group, infrastructure and community engagement work groups, which we will go more into detail with. We also have our Health Equity Coalition coordinators, which include administrative, membership, communications, and finance. And lastly, there are some special projects, which in the past have included our Health Equity Network Exchange and Health Equity videos. So that is an overview of the diagram. So you all can really understand the structure and how the Health Equity Coalition fits into both CPHA and just like this larger picture. And part of building a public health movement is understanding, our role and, having that ripple effect and, what we create is people power. So really coming together and uplifting the strengths and the wisdom that you all bring to the group to then, create change on multiple different levels. So thank you so much for sharing, Kat. I can take it over from here. We got this.
Donna, can I add one thing while you're pulling your screen back up?
Yes, of course.
One element I'd love to highlight for folks where there is some overlap is the Emerging Leaders Committee. One of there's an opportunity to support the Explore Public Health programming that the Emerging Leaders. So another one of the OGs from the Health Equity Coalition, Suzuhoshi Misaki, launched an Explore Public Health program several years ago. And the Emerging Leaders Committee is a part of CPHA, and the coalition is partnering with them on getting that program moving forward for this year. So just another little kind of piece of overlap with the coalition and the overall CPHA structure.
Yes, thank you so much for adding that, Corey. Yeah, the Emerging Leaders Committee is incredible and just doing really great work. So I really appreciate you bringing that in. We got to add them to the diagram because, yeah, the ELC is awesome. And hopefully we can, drop a link in the chat for people to connect with that group as well. So thank you for adding that. Now we do want to talk about the Health Equity Coalition work groups. And as we go through this, just kind of like take note on which one really sparks your interest or which one you want to learn more about, because there will be an opportunity at the end of this onboarding to kind of pick which of these work groups you would like to dive into a little bit more. So first, we have the Community Engagement Work Group, and they come together to really ensure that this coalition is driven by community members with diverse identities and backgrounds. We strive to authentically to uplift authentic community engagement and commit to creating an inclusive coalition. The Professional Development Work Group, I'm going to actually pass over to Kat and let her speak on this because she is our current Professional Development Work Group lead.
Everyone, I hope that some of you are interested in this work group. We haven't really been super active since early last year. It was really myself and Charlotte, who hasn't been able to come to meetings recently, and Sedona, and then she went on maternity leave. So it was me and Charlotte. And so we did host a webinar with, if you all went to Public Health in the Rockies, you probably remember the keynote speaker, Jana Barnes. She was our webinar host for a series on housing equity and housing justice. So that was really awesome. We had over 100 attendees to that. And I think we had some really awesome education and discussions around that. And then last summer we kind of took a step back from planning our own webinar series just because we had limited capacity. And so we jumped into supporting the Active Collective Trauma Summit. And I think later on in these slides, you'll be able to see the awesome graphic recording that came out of that. So we we're able to hire somebody and pay for their time to be able to really capture some of the takeaways and great discussions that happened at the ACT Summit in a really beautiful piece of artwork that will live on forever. So keep your eye out for that. And then we do have some ideas for future webinars or ways to continue to support the active collective trauma folks. So they were hoping to do some sort of react sessions to keep building momentum off of the first ACT Summit. So hopefully if you're interested in joining this group, we can put together some really awesome education opportunities this next year.
Thank you so much, Kat. That was a beautiful overview of the professional development work group and some of the work that's been done. We also have the infrastructure work group lead on the call today, Jillian, who has also been supporting with some of our tech support. So Jillian, if you would like to give a quick overview of the infrastructure work group, that would be amazing.
Sure, thanks, Sedona. Hello, everyone. So the infrastructure work group is the main group that helps support and develop the backbone functions of the Health Equity Coalition, while also ensuring that we are following all the principles that we've seen here around equity and meeting differently. And that includes like the circle way that we model every time. And some of our goals are to really focus on how the Health Equity Coalition operates and is governed. What are some meeting practices and decision-making models that we can use here, and then documenting those and supporting those processes. We work to build a bi-directional relationship with CPHA to infuse equity within their principles. A lot of us on the coalition are also CPHA members and board members, so it's all really exciting. I love this group. Little plug, if folks are interested in kind of thinking through how to make structures more efficient, function better, and be involved in some networking pieces around CPHA and these Health Equity Coalition members, feel free to join. We are currently seeking co-leads for this group. We've had a co-leadership model since, oh gosh, 2019 now, and it functions really well. So if you want to learn more about that and work in that way, feel free to join us. Hopefully that was enough.
Yes, thank you, Jillian. That was wonderful. I really appreciate you jumping in and giving that overview. But yeah, each of these work groups really plays an essential role in the coalition. This is how we take collective action in different areas that are important to the coalition and in ways that elevate different people's strengths or interests. So that's why I kind of preface this with like, you know, seeing what you might find interest in. And as Jillian said, a lot of these work groups are looking for either like a lead or a co-lead, as well as just like active participants, you know, people willing to show up and share ideas as well. So we will kind of talk a little more about all of that, but just wanted to give you all an overview of each of these work groups and create that shared understanding. So another essential part of the coalition is the Health Equity Coalition coordinator roles, which includes communication, administrative, membership, and finance. So these coordinator roles are like the streams that flow throughout the ecosystem, really ensuring that everything stays healthy and hydrated. We need all of these to make sure that the parts of the ecosystem can work together in harmony and that we have a thriving environment. So, you know, like Jillian was saying about like the infrastructure, like, you know, all of these pieces are so important to ensure that we can continue to do equity work in meaningful ways. So I want to just real quick do a huge shout out to Kate Myers, who is our new Health Equity Coalition Administrative Coordinator. She couldn't attend this meeting, but she's going to be a huge help in just getting us organized and grounded to do this work. And if you're interested in another role, whether it's communication or membership or even finance, like, you know, trying to identify additional ways to get money and funding to this group, and then thinking about like a budget and what an anti-racist and equitable budget looks like in a coalition, definitely, think about these roles as well. And these roles are also like liaisons to the CPHA committees, and can really support in multiple ways in these leadership capacities. Cool. So part of what we really want to focus on is deepening equitable practices of the coalition. So we recognize that there is always a need for relationship building, because with relationship building, that creates trust. And once we have trust, like that's when we can really do powerful work together. And it does also require like identifying and understanding that there has been some historical and active collective trauma that we're all dealing with in different ways. So really doing that relationship building, and holding space for deeper conversations held with that trust. So, once we do that, we can really dive into topics and areas that are important to discuss. So really having that historical context as foundation, feeding into education, the current state, and just recognizing where we are, being transparent of, our budget and what we're working with, and moving forward from there together as a collective. Making sure we're hearing from those most impacted by systemic inequities. Recognizing that the way it takes for BIPOC, so Black, Indigenous, people of color, to really do diversity, equity, and inclusion work is real. We can't just expect people to show up in spaces and do this work, because it is heavy and it does take a toll, and we need to constantly be doing that inner healing and that inner work as well. And also understanding the role work, and recognizing that BIPOC and white folks might have to do different work together to advance equity. So part of this is just getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, and knowing that when we're doing equity and anti-racist work, there will be moments where, people are triggered or people are uncomfortable, and it's entering that space with grace, with humility, and with courage, especially. And then lastly, going deeper within the circle way and really building more reciprocity, more connection within this coalition as well. So these are just some of the things that were important to shout out as ways that we're deepening our equitable practices of the coalition. So our current state, just to create that level setting, we want to come together in meaningful ways to take action. We are also approaching the time for another annual retreat. So the last one was held on March 26th, 2022. So definitely kind of thinking about when our next retreat is going to be, really because it's vital to hear from people in the coalition to ensure we share power and move forward together. So that's something that we'll be, thinking of. As I mentioned earlier, we are in need of work group leads and engagement for those 3 different work groups that we outlined. Also, CPHA is in transition right now. So there's a lot of moving parts, and we really are trying to create some grounding. So the Health Equity Coalition is really working also to organize and just create the grounding that we need as a coalition to be successful, and to also support in CPHA's anti-racist journey as well. And as Jason Vitello says, Colorado is resource rich and coordination poor. So thinking about how we can, see and identify people who are doing powerful equity work and really amplify those efforts by helping to connect and create better coordination. Instead of recreating the wheel, how do we amplify and uplift what's already happening? So I love this image of just the bees and the flowers coming together to organize for a better future, because we all have a different role to play, and we can all come together with this common vision for a more equitable future. So speaking of Jason, there he is. We wanted to give a brief overview and history of the Health Equity Coalition. So we were originated in 2017, 2018, when Jason Vitello served as our founding director. The Circle Way was implemented in 2019 to 2020. And around that same time of 2020, a global pandemic really amplified the social injustices that we were experiencing. And also around this time is when racism was finally announced as a public health crisis, something we've known for a very long time, but I think it was significant to just recognize that finally, public health agencies are recognizing this and, trying to take action. In 2021, we launched the Health Equity Network Exchange platform that will connect equity work across the state. That is also something we want to, look more into and amplify as well. We released the What is Health Equity videos, which are a really great way to, put this knowledge into a digestible form of like media, multimedia for people to learn more about. And in 2022, we held the first ever community engagement event during Public Health in the Rockies in Summit County. You'll hear a little bit more about that as well. But just wanted to take this moment now for everyone to take a pause and just think about what we've said so far, and think about, what has really sparked your interest or your passion. Also, I forgot to mention on the last slide, but if you're interested in learning the full history of the coalition, we'll share a link to that as well. And a link to some of those other things we mentioned, such as the videos. But yeah, just take this moment to pause and reflect on what we've said so far. Think about any questions or things you might be resonating with. And as you're kind of in that thinking space, this picture is of a good friend of mine, Angel, when she was given a health equity presentation back in the day to a group of young people. And I also just want to read this quote. And this definition of equity. It's when everyone, regardless of who they are or where they come from, has the opportunity to thrive. This requires eliminating barriers like poverty and repairing injustices in systems such as education, health, criminal justice, transportation, and more. So I'll give you all just kind of one more moment to pause and reflect before we continue through this onboarding, because I know it's a lot of information. So just a moment to digest. Y'all about to see some really awesome pictures coming up. So these are just some throwbacks and highlights of previous years of the Health Equity Coalition, including some youth engagement efforts from back in the day. Also in the upper left corner is a photo from a hybrid Health Equity Coalition retreat held last March. So you'll see we've definitely been through many different seasons of engagement, and it's looked many different ways, but we continue to come together, despite what's going on. We have a commitment to equity. So some recent Health Equity Coalition wins. The Active Collective Trauma Summit was a huge win. The Health Equity Professional Development Work Group, supported by joining ACT, the ACT Planning Committee, as well as funding a graphic recorder to be there on the last day of the summit. Another win is the Health Equity Coalition modeled support by showing up for youth and community during a time in need for the I Survive Photo Voice Expo. So there was actually some institutional barriers we were facing, and the coalition was able to overcome that and really show up for equity in action in a reciprocal and beautiful way. And also the first ever health community engagement event. So I will show some pictures of these wins. This is the graphic recording that Kat had mentioned earlier. So I'll give everyone a minute to just check out this beautiful piece of artwork that is also a form of qualitative data that we collected on the last day of the Active Collective Trauma Summit held in August 2022. So just take a moment and look at this graphic recording, see what sparks your heart, what catches your eye. And also just want to point out that this was used during like a planning process called the Liberation Lab. Shout out to Alicia Garcia, who facilitated that. But yeah, this was just a really inspiring day. And I feel like this graphic really beautifully captures a lot of what we discussed. Here are some photos from the ACT Summit, and these 3 days focused on learning about active collective trauma, coming together to uplift healing resources within community, and mobilizing together to take action and really cultivate change to address the active collective trauma being perpetuated. More info is coming soon about the 2023 ACT Summit and also the REACT series. So definitely stay tuned. We'll try to be a conduit for getting information out to you all about these opportunities as well. These were some photos from the I Survive Photo Voice Expo, which was a youth-led event uplifting youth voice and resilience. It featured a photo voice exhibit, youth performers who blessed the stage with their dance, speaking, poetry, stories, and creativity, as well as multiple organizations and healing resources. We held a healing circle at the end of the event, which was so moving. But yeah, the Health Equity Coalition really came through and supported this event when we had kind of like a last minute issue, and that led to actually a reciprocal relationship with the Youth Coalition and the Health Equity Coalition as well. So really powerful example of equity in action. And lastly, these were a few photos from our community engagement event in Summit County during Public Health in the Rockies. This was entirely Health Equity Coalition planned and led events. We collaborated with local organizations in Summit County to provide resources, including food bags, gift cards, giveaways, and so much more, really to the families with the highest needs. This event featured Aztec dancers, a focus on environmental justice featuring women from the mountain, delicious food for all, community like activities and chances to give feedback, and just a lot of really great relationship building in this space as well. So we are hoping to make this an annual event. So we will be holding another one this year, hopefully. So now that you've gotten kind of an overview of some of our previous work and some recent wins, these are our proposed actions for 2023. Number one being work on identifying funding sources to shift from volunteer only to a more equitable pay structure for the group. So that could include, really looking and applying for grants, and whether that's us individually or with CPHA as a whole is something that, is something that we need to strategically plan. But some of the other proposed actions is really relationship building and focusing on our next retreat so we can ensure that we are getting coalition input and all of your voice. Support equity work that is happening in Colorado, identified by the coalition. And lastly, that community engagement event in Summit County during the Public Health in the Rockies conference. So those are just some of our proposed actions, but also knowing that we are open and that this is that this coalition is co-created by all of you and all of the community members involved. So now we have time for a conversation and some breakout groups. So first want to just see if there's any general questions for the large group. So we'll take a pause, but we're going to choose a breakout room based on which working group you're most interested in. So community engagement, professional development, or infrastructure. So just think about which one you're interested in now, in joining and learning more about. Let me see. Okay, cool. And then we'll come back and have some questions to debrief on. So before we jump into those breakout rooms, I want to just kind of like, this is some things to think about. So when you join your breakout room, you can think about these questions. What have you heard that sparks your interest? What do you want to gain from being involved in the Health Equity Coalition or this work group? And what can you contribute, whether it's to the larger coalition or specifically that work group? So those are just some questions to consider as you all break out into the breakout rooms. And Jillian will create those so you can all choose your own adventure, which way you want to go. And we'll have about 15 minutes in each of the breakout rooms. And then we will come back together and kind of talk more. But before you go into your breakout rooms, just want to, say that we understand that this is a volunteer structure currently, and we want to be transparent and support everyone in having healthy boundaries and really just balance with the other things going on in your life. We also recognize the importance of doing this work and being committed to equity. So really thinking about, how you're showing up, what your capacity is, and just also knowing that we're actively working towards a pay structure that will better compensate Health Equity Coalition members, but just knowing that it is volunteer only. So kind of consider that when you're thinking about your capacity and willingness to take on different tasks or projects within these working groups, but also know that we want to really encourage your leadership, and that we're here to support anyone in exploring these and taking on these leadership roles as well. So I will let Jillian get us into our breakout rooms. I'm gonna stop share. And before we do that, I see Jason has his hand up. So Jason, if you want to share.
Yeah, I've got to jump off here, but I wanted to say a few words before I left. It's really amazing to see the emergence of your leadership, Sedona. I too knew you at 16. I met Stephanie back then when I was brand new to public health as well. And to see the two of you in your roles as OG members of the coalition to now leading it is really fantastic and exciting. Other OG members like Wavine Nagongo, who said years ago that our aspiration is that health equity will be the blood that flows through the body of CPHA, through the organs of its executive leadership and other committees. We've come a long way. And that's always thanks to the people who show up. Struggles take off at elevated levels because of those who came before. And I know I'm looking at the future leaders of this coalition and many of the future leaders of CPHA in this space right now. Not only have we been rocking health equity and racial equity across Colorado, APHA has made significant advancements in their commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and anti-racism efforts as well. And that is directly linked to CPHA and specifically the work of the Health Equity Coalition. A lot to be proud of. We have a lot of work to do. A lot of work that is, we've got our work cut out for us. We've got anti-racist efforts across the state, across the country, as well as a lot of anti-public health rhetoric and organized movements, and higher rates of enrollment in public health programs across the state, across the country, and a lot more universities creating DEI content, right? So there's a growing awareness. We hear a lot about the bad news, but there's a lot of good news too. And as ever, it's really people power. And Wavine, Sedona, you said it multiple times tonight, work. We got work to do, because this is not about words. It's not about being woke. This is about work. There's plenty of it. So please roll up your sleeves and help us take this coalition to the next level. Thank you all for keeping this thing going.
Oh, Mateo. Thank you, Jason. Wavine, I'm going to pass it to you.
I just wanted to say ditto. I wanted to take this opportunity to say exactly what Jason said. I also have to hop off. It's just been such a long day. And so I appreciate being here and everything you shared with us, Sedona. And also just in my personal role moving forward in CPHA, I will just so be looking at HECs for guidance and just connection and family and community. This is my original family in CPHA, and it's so great that starting here and then kind of progressing to the board, I wouldn't have had any other path. And so thank you. And Sedona also, I guess I didn't realize that when we first met, that was like you starting off in your public health career. And so if that was around you being 17, then I guess I can also say the same. I don't know, but it's so beautiful to see you here. It's so wonderful. So I want to thank you, Sedona, for getting us all on board, for getting us all caught up. You've done such a beautiful and amazing job. And thank you again for everyone here, just for being here on a 7 p.m. Tuesday night. It's so meaningful. So thank you.
And I would be remiss not to give a special shout out to Corey Thomas for really elevating this coalition and taking it to the next level, including the national stage. Members of the coalition, as we've advised public health entities on the national stage, and Corey's done a lot of work in elevating the really good work that we've been doing.
We love you, Corey.
Yes.
I love all of you so much.
We love you, Corey. Thank you. Huge shout out to you. I'm so grateful to know all of you and to be in spaces where we can uplift each other in these meaningful ways. So just thank you so much. With the bit of time we have left, I do want to, have us break out into breakout rooms at least for about like 5 to 10 minutes so that you all can connect and just find a point of interest, to move forward in the coalition. And for those who have to hop off, buenas noches. Thank you for joining. We appreciate you. And thank you to those who can stay and join a breakout room. We'll spend about like 5 minutes in the breakout room so that we do have time to come back together and debrief. But this way we can at least identify who's interested in what areas and start to kind of take action. So I will have Jillian.
Real quick, Sedona, I have a question.
Yes, any questions, welcome.
Capacity, as far as like really trying to evaluate capacity, what would you like an estimation as far as committee involvement? Like, are we talking weekly, monthly, quarterly? Like, what is the typical meeting time ask for like just engagement and then as a lead before we go into these breakouts?
That is a great question. I feel like it's really up to you all to decide that. As a larger coalition meeting, we have these, standing meetings, which are bi-monthly. So that kind of does give some time in between for work groups to meet. Yeah, I think it's kind of up to us to decide what it looks like, what is the frequency, really based on everyone's capacity who is interested and showing up. I think the work group leads take on a little bit more of like the work and the coordinating. But yeah, if anyone has something to add who's been a work group lead or been involved in the work groups, happy to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, this is Corey. My personal experience is echoing what Sedona just mentioned, which sometimes can be really hard to not have that kind of structure. But the really self-assessing capacity and being committed to what this smaller group decides. So when we first started the infrastructure work group, we met on every other month, the opposite months of the coalition. We ended up increasing that to, I think we got up to weekly at some point, not because we had more capacity, but we appreciated the connection with each other and had really formed some deep relationships. So we were a big, the infrastructure work group for the Health Equity Coalition was for me in 2020 and 2021. And we really self-governed how frequently we met based on each other's capacity and adapted. And then I think we got up to meeting kind of quarterly. And so Jillian can share where things are at now, but I think we kind of landed on that every other month or monthly space.
Yeah, thank you so much for adding that, Corey. And just looking at the time we have left, maybe instead of going into breakout rooms, I would love to just, keep hearing questions, from you all as a large group, or if anyone has like comments or thoughts about what you might be interested in. And then also I'll have everyone like put in the chat if they are interested in a work group, what you might be interested in for next time, or just to, put your name down so we can kind of start to create some of those connections. So that might be a better use of our time, you know, so we can kind of stay together as a collective. So with that being said, are there any other questions or thoughts? And yeah, I'm already seeing some comments, so that's awesome. So I'll let y'all keep commenting. I just have a few more slides to move us through to kind of officially close us out. Definitely keep thinking of any questions or comments you might want to share out with the large group. I did have a little time to kind of report out from each of the breakout rooms, but I think just putting in the chat, you know, kind of what you're interested in joining or learning more about will be a great way to move us forward. And then I would love us to share a 1 word or 1 sentence reflection, you know, about this meeting. So I'll actually bring us back so we can kind of, you know, come off mute and people could share or put in the chat a short reflection. And I did want to kind of share action items and next steps. So we will be sending out a newsletter that kind of details what the next steps are from this meeting. We'll also include the date for our next meeting. So it is bi-monthly. So our next meeting will be in April, and definitely sign up for our newsletter if you haven't already. We'll drop that link in the chat. But just to close this section, before we move into our reflection, I wanted to share a quote by Cesar Chavez. And he says, "Once social change begins, it cannot be reversed. You cannot uneducate the person that has learned to read. You cannot humiliate the person who feels pride. And you cannot oppress the people who are not afraid anymore." So just wanted to leave you all with that quote and just say thank you, thank you, thank you all for joining and being in this virtual space. I know it's late on a Tuesday evening, so just want to express my gratitude for you all for being here and for listening to this onboarding, and just for your commitment to equity. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the screen share and bring us back to our kind of closeout or reflection, which is 1 word or sentence in the chat about this meeting, and also just open it up for any questions or kind of general comments. And also be sure to leave which work group you're interested in the chat as well. And again, our reflection prompt is kind of like 1 word or phrase. So for me, my word will be gratitude.
For me, it'll be hopeful.
For me, the word is proud.
Mine is connection.
Thank you all. Any last words or reflections that people want to share with the large group?
I just wanted to say also, we are in the process of rebuilding this group. If you have friends or colleagues that you think may be interested, please let them know. And we have a form that they can fill out and we can get them on the list to participate in the future.
Yes, thank you so much for mentioning that, Stephanie. Alicia, I saw you come off mute.
To me, it's just always coming back to the circle. The solution is in the circle, and just always it's from ancient times to modern times. It is the constant that keeps providing.
I love it. It feels like we just took a like collective moment of silence there after Alicia's beautiful words of wisdom. So thank you all for that much needed just pause, for all of these reflections, for your presence in this meeting. I want to allow everyone to, adjourn and get on with their evenings, but I will be hanging out if anyone has additional questions or wants to connect. I'll stay on our meeting till 7. But yeah, just want to thank you all. And if anyone needs to hop off, you can feel free. But thank you for joining.
Were all of the notes in the chat, was someone able to gather those?
I'll make sure, Stephanie, to get the whole chat before I close this out, and to
Okay.
save our recording as well for any
Okay.
future members.
Perfect, thank you.
Maybe let's stop the record before we shift into more open conversation.